2019 to order, and we will start, please, by honoring our country with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda today is a transfer request from the prosecutor's office. I'm not sure who's here to ask for that request. I see, yes, sir. If you would step forward and identify yourself and who you're with, sir.
Thank you, sir. My name is DJ Sigler. I'm a prosecuting attorney here for Whitley County. I have a last year-end housekeeping matter to bring before the council for your approval this morning. As the council will recall, we had some personnel changes in our office. We added a part-time staff person with your approval and blessing earlier this year, and I would report, first of all, to the council that has worked out marvelously for my office. It has improved the way that we're doing business, so I thank you for your assistance in that regard. When we made that personnel change, we added a full-time hire. It necessitated paying out our departing staff member a portion of her unused time, as I understand it. And paying out that time caused something of an internal shortfall. We have to move money around basically to cover that payout for that particular employee. This is not an additional appropriation request. This is money that we already budgeted internally. It was unused in an equipment budget for office equipment. We're transferring some money out of that. We're asking your permission to transfer money out of that equipment budget, and also out of an unused witness fee allocation that we had. The total amount of the request is $2,500 across both of those accounts. And again, not a new appropriation, not additional money, money that already exists within our budget. We're simply asking for your permission to make that change and to do that payout. Did I say that correctly? Did I say that correctly? Okay, good. I work for Jan and Jenny, so I'm just happy to be here.
I move we approve the request.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same, and let it be shown it was passed unanimously with all board members present.
Thank you, John.
We have a transfer request from Judge Fahl, please.
Good morning, Doug Fahl, Whitley Spirit Court, and after Thanksgiving I'm giving a whole new meeting of Fat Tuesdays, so I hope you're all having a good morning. But real quick, this is a somewhat of a planned transfer. With the advent of pretrial services, Liz Deckard is doing a lot more in terms of her public defender contract, so we chose to start paying more on that contract at the beginning of the year with anticipation of she's gone from working Monday and Tuesdays to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. And so what I had is I held money back in my conflict budget. The public defender conflict budget is whenever the public defender that's under contract has a conflict, for instance, co-defendants or something of that nature, and cannot represent a defendant, then I pay out of this PD conflict budget another attorney to represent that defendant. I have money left over in that budget for this year, and I'm asking that we transfer that $6,400 to the public defender contract to pay Ms. Deckard for the extra time that she's put in this year. Similar to Mr. Sigler, it's not an additional appropriation. It's money that I already have that I've made sure I set aside so for this very reason, because I knew we'd come up with this shortfall. I'm just asking your approval to transfer that. Any questions?
Make a motion, we approve the transfer resolution.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. I'll call for further discussion. Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. And let it be shown it was passed unanimously with all members present.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Jason Meyer, please, from Passages.
Morning, Council. Thank you for having me today. I wanted to provide an update on Passages and what we're doing here in Whitley County, and also want to brighten the holiday season with a holiday gift. So this was made by our Passages artistries and artists, so permission to approach.
Absolutely.
So I'll just keep talking on hand and out. So this is something made by our Bridge 333 Art Studio. We started this a few years ago at Passages, and it's really a way of do collaborative artwork. All this stuff was donated actually from the community, and we made them with woodworking and different things from volunteers in the community that work alongside our artists. So Jana received hers yesterday.
Thank you.
So, hope you're enjoying it and have it hung somewhere. So everyone get enough handouts for this? Okay. So I just wanted to provide a quick update. We're celebrating 65 years this year, so we've been around since 1954. Our mission is passionately leading or assisting people with disabilities into a thriving and meaningful life. So we work with adults and children with intellectual developmental disabilities, so people with autism and Down syndrome, a lot of dual diagnosis disabilities. We serve about 200 people here in Whitley County, and we have 130 employees. So we have about a $5.5 million budget, and we appreciate the county funds each year. The funds we receive from the county, we receive 2 payments in the spring and the fall, and we use that for transportation. So we have 11 vehicles that we have at Passages, as well as a great partnership with Whitley County Transit as well. So Whitley County Transit helps pick up and drop off our people at our Creative Learning Center, and then our fleet of vehicles helps transport people to and from our homes. So we have 18 24-hour homes, 14 24-hour homes here in Whitley County and 7 non-24-hour homes. So we provide service 365, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day in those 24-hour homes. So we do a lot of different things at Passages. I just kind of wanted to give you an update of some of the new things we're doing. Giving Tuesdays, obviously, today, so we have a big match opportunity. Any new donations we receive online before 11:59 today are going to be matched dollar for dollar by the AWS Foundation in Fort Wayne. I know you have a full agenda, but I also wanted to just highlight some events that we have coming up. March 12th is our big art show fundraiser. We've revamped it this year. Our goal is to raise $40,000. Last year we raised $5,000, so we're trying to increase a little bit, making it plated dinner and incorporating a live auction component into it as well. And then we have a 5K and 10K that we have in April. We had a 10K component to it this year. Last year, we changed it from just a traditional 5K and added donuts at the end and doubled our attendance. So we figured, what the heck, we'll add a 10K and maybe bring some more donuts and make it even more fun. So those are a few things we're doing. And then I'm also the president of Whitley Crossings Neighborhood Corporation. That's a housing corporation here. So we have the Clugston Senior Apartments downtown and 2 other developments here in Whitley County. And we're working on rehabbing the Clugston, as well as building 9 new homes next to our Creative Learning Center on Oak Street. So we received about a quarter of those funds a couple weeks ago, and we're applying for some more grants in March. So if we get those, we should hopefully start construction by the fall of 2020 or spring of 2021. So just kind of depending on timing and when we receive everything. But we have a couple invitations in there for some upcoming events at Passages. They're getting to know Passages. They're free events where you can come learn more about us. And it's about an hour long, a free breakfast, free lunch. We have one in January and one in March. So that might be a better way to learn more than the fire hose and 3 minutes if you don't. But if you have to answer any questions, I just wanted to thank you for your support, and thanks again.
We appreciate what you do.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Ed Robbins, please.
Good morning. We had, in the last meeting, asked for the GIS coordinator to be refactored due to a discrepancy with the job description that job description came back and it was changed from a PAT2 to a PAT3. I sent information out on that, so there is a difference in as far as the wage. So needs to be a decision on what you guys want to do going forward. The other thing I have is the weights and measures. We have a job that was approved by the council and the commissioners for weights and measures. That job needs to be sent to WIS to be factored. We have the job description put together, we just don't have it factored as far as what the wage would be, so I need permission to be able to go ahead and send that in to have that passed off to WIS.
Didn't that, we had that before, and didn't that get assumed by the county health, Scott? Doesn't he do that?
He does that, but he's plenty busy right now, and he needs that hired, so it's gonna be a part-time position.
Okay, so he needs help out of it, that's what we're
He needs
talking
help,
about.
yes. So send that in to be factored. That needs a vote.
Well, let's start with the issue of having that weights and measures job factored. We need a motion on whether or not we are going to send that to WIS to be factored.
I make a motion that we send it in to have it refactored.
To have it refactored or factored?
Factored.
We don't have it.
Never,
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. That will be shown as passed unanimously with all board members present.
That's all I have. Unless you have any questions on the GIS.
Any questions on the GIS coordinator from HR representative?
That particular issue will be covered when we do the salary ordinance, correct?
Well, it'll be in part, it'll be in the salary ordinance, yes, but the way it is currently in the salary ordinance would be under the PAT 2 still, correct, Ed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess we can make that decision now on if that's how we want to leave it, or whether we want to make any changes to it, or how we want to proceed from here with that position as it's been refactored.
My thoughts on it are we leave the position as is, wage rise without reducing it any, and take in consideration on future budgets, and we do our salary ordinance, the position change.
Do you mean just let it catch up? Like not give them any increases until it catches up?
Right. As we go through the 2021 budget and 2022 budget on it, take into consideration of the position it was, how it's been restructured on it, and go from there.
Ed, I know you and I had a conversation on this. I'll make sure that I understand it. And I believe I do, but let's make sure everybody understands it. The job was originally factored as a supervisory position. Can you just go through that process and how we got to this point and how that came back and where the salary is at now moving forward?
Okay, the job had supervisory duties in the job description. There was some discussion that the reason why that was put in there was to be looking at future abilities. Since that was not current of what that position had did was supervisory position, we had it refactored with WIS. WIS took that specific line out. That was the only line that was changed. And it went from a PAT2 to a PAT3. A PAT2 pays, with the new midpoints, a PAT2 pays 57.5 and change. The PAT3 pays 47.064. The GIS coordinator currently is at 50,000. So there's about a $3,000 difference between what the new midpoint will be that is making over that. So.
So the idea that you have as far as leaving him where he's at, is to not cause a pay decrease in what he's
That is
currently
correct.
made this year. That has nothing to do with the PAT category as far as where it's
Does not,
at.
no.
I agree with John. I don't want to cut anybody's pay, even though it is wrong. And just assuming that future councils will know what we're doing and let it catch up.
How would we address this particular position on the $1,200 cost of living increase that we gave to all county employees?
And as is.
Consistent.
So that would still, he would still be eligible for that.
So please clarify for me, the 50,731 is the current wage or it's the projected wage?
That's what is the current wage.
For always.
Okay.
This is what,
And we were projecting him up to 57 as a Pat 2, or?
yeah.
That was, if he would have stayed at Pat 2, then he would have went to 57 with, well, plus the 1,200.
He's currently at 50,731. The Pat 2
That's
position,
including the 1,200, right?
no.
No.
The Pat 2 position, how it was factored out with the supervisor responsibilities, put it at 57,574 when we had it refactored, because there's no supervisory duties there in the job. It came back at a Pat 3 at 47,064, so as not to give him a decrease.
Yeah, and that would
I
be,
understand John's motion that we would leave it at the 5723, moving forward until he got to the point, or at a point we got refactored to where it would, we would actually need to refactor that position to keep both the market value. But we also, part of this would be that he would still receive the $1,200 cost of living increase. So we'll have 1,200, so that would make next year, instead of the 5723, 51,931.
isn't that what we did with every employee when they were factored that was already above midpoint? They just stayed where they were.
Yes, you're exactly right.
So
That
it
would be consistent with that, plus that they were also given the $1,200 cost of living increase. So I do have a motion and a second that that's how we will treat that position. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it be shown that was passed unanimously with all board members present.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Gatton, please.
Mark Gatton, Whitley County Sheriff. First thing I'm coming for you is on the matron's pay. I just would like to look at a brief history. In 2013 and 14, the matron made more than a deputy. When I took over as sheriff, I realized that in the end of the 14 budget and requested it to be removed down to a deputy pay. So from 15, 16, 17, 18, the matron's been paid the same as a deputy. When hers was refactored, it wasn't factored at that. So I'm requesting the difference of $1,331 put back into the matron's pay.
Okay, so her salary this year, Mark, is what, that she's making right now at that position?
Her 19 salary, I don't have her 18 salary.
It's 53,183.
Oh, sorry, 19, that is, 53,183.
Okay, and then what is your request that her salary be set at for next year?
Same thing as a deputy, the midpoint of 54,514.
Sheriff Gatton, what led you to determine that the pay, when you set it several years ago, would be the same as a deputy?
I was following the statute, and I believe Attorney Shipman's also looked at it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but it's by statute, what we set that at.
Indiana statute 36.810.5. I guess I'm not an attorney, I'd refer to Attorney Shipman.
The statute basically calls for the matron pay being set the same as the deputy, and so there's talks about that, and I think that was the rationale, was to be in conformance with the. And it could be more, it just has to be at
Yeah.
least. So I think it's a possibility.
So in 2015, you recognized that she was being paid more than your deputies, and you adjusted that and lowered it?
Yeah, the matron made more in 13 and 14, which was under Sheriff Hodges, and I knew of the statute, and then in 15, there was a slight increase, but it wasn't as much as other county employees got.
Okay, and Jana, can you, I mean, is that, I don't have that information in front of me as far as what the salaries were, but can you tell us that's exactly what it was, that she was being paid the same as a deputy all those years?
Yes, yeah.
So, and what happened to throw that off? How did that get, just,
I don't know how the matron got above.
no, I mean, as far as getting below it now, did we just miss it in when we sat down to do a budget? Did we just miss that detail when we put a budget together?
I
or-
think the budget number, it's actually right, it was teeter-tottering on what WIS had sent back, and also that court case that Attorney Shipman was talking about, he was looking into.
So if I understand it right, WIS gave us a lower number than what the statute requires.
Yeah, and I think they based most of their, I think, well, I know that they based it off of, I didn't bring that with me. They based it off of just doing a comparison of matrons. And our matron, out of the 92 counties, which I think we are 49th in population overall, but in the window that they used, she came back, or that position came back, this is high than the average. But I think being consistent with what we've just done here, regardless of whether this mistake was, or this oversight was a year or two ago, I think being consistent with what we've just done, I think it would be proper to make sure that we get that back to where it was.
Couple quick questions on matron's duties on it. Is she a sworn officer?
No.
Has she had any law enforcement academy training in comparison to what a deputy would be going through?
No.
When the job description that we had refactored this year, Mark, through WIS, was that, did you put that job description together?
Yeah, we put the job description together after we had the meeting with Liz. Told him.
Okay. So you put the job description together and submitted it. This information then, or this oversight, you weren't aware of at that time as far as the statute that you're citing as far as where she should be at and where that position should be at in
I
pay?
gave Liz the statute
Okay.
number. We didn't do a lot of talking because I said it was set by statute to him.
It's a pretty short statute.
Is it without her duties, the matron's duties in that statute?
Yeah, and that's the reason that I asked that, is because when you read the statute, it really, the duties that it outlines in there for the matron really aren't even in this job description as far as the duties. lot of duties there. There's a very, detailed job, and this job description is very detailed, but it doesn't even have the content of what this IC code that you use is not even part of the job description, or there's things in there that's not included in the job description.
So if the statute requires us, is that the way I'm hearing it, requires us to pay the same or more as a deputy?
What it says is that it's to be salary as other members of the department of the same rank, grade, and position are paid. So that's what the statute says. So like a lot of things that happen in the legislature, they give us clear as mud. So then we have to go read case law. And there's a case that says specifically that that means, in essence, that the matron should be paid the same as an deputy. And so those are the two things working together. Where a prison matron was paid less than a deputy, and the county ended up paying $60,000 or $70,000 over because she was underpaid. And trying to avoid, obviously.
Do we know in that case law, was the matron a former deputy?
She was the sheriff's wife at that time.
That's true. From Pike County, it's 1984 case, and I did go through it again.
In my opinion, I think this IC code is irrelevant to what we're trying to do here today. I appreciate the fact that you cite it, and I think if we didn't have the other issue at hand, we could sit here and debate the IC code on whether it applies or doesn't apply, but I think the fact that she was paid at an equal rate at one point, and then that had been overlooked, I don't think that just because of the fact that it was 2 years ago takes away the doing the right thing as far as making sure that she's put back, that position is put back at that status. This IC code, if you wanted to go by that, also says that the matron shall receive, search, and care for all female prisoners and all boys under the age of 14 years of age, committed to or detained in the county jail, municipal lockup, or other detention center in the county, which would include work release. And as much as is already in this job description, I don't know that you could pile that into what she already does and have the expectation that that position takes care of intakes on all females, both at the jail and at the work release center. So I would be hesitant to try to cite this case law and tie it to that job as far as making those responsibilities, because there's enough responsibilities there, and I think that the system, Mark, answer or jump in here if I'm wrong, is this would be antiquated to what the position is for a matron at this point and what she does, to have that expectation that she receives all female prisoners and 14-year-old boys.
Yeah, the statute might be a little outdated.
Yep, so I think we can agree on that the statute could be debated either way, and it could apply or could not apply, but the right thing to do here, if she was at that position, is probably irrelevant to what this IC code even stands for or what it would represent at this point.
I think with all the information that's been provided to us on it, I think the position of matron should be the same as the deputy. And if it needs to be a motion, so do. But I also want to realize that in this day and age that calling her a matron is also gender bias.
Maybe it's appropriate at some point with the Sheriff's Association to retitle that position. So,
There's a motion. The position of matron and position of deputy be compensated the same.
so a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I would say that I don't necessarily agree with the fact that it should be compensated the same. just because I think, just with all the different job responsibilities that each position has, it would be very hard for it to come out the same. But I think that it's in the range, and I think that where it was set up before, we have a responsibility to be consistent with that and consistent with other things that we've done, so I would be in favor of moving it to
What
that.
the sheriff's request was that it do the same, correct?
Which I think in the budget.
Any further discussion? We'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it be shown it was passed unanimously with all members present.
Okay, the next thing I have, which I sent everybody an email. Here's a copy of my contract. Commissioner Amber, I gave one yesterday. I guess there was a thought or some concern that I may have changed a word in the contract. And I'm gonna tell you, as being sheriff of Whitley County, I was deeply hurt that people would think I would change my contract to benefit myself. So approximately 366 days ago, myself, the commissioners, and you entered into a contract. This contract was set under Indiana statute 36-213-2.5. We entered into this contract together to save the county general additional money from the meal money. I believe the numbers were roughly, in my first 4 years as sheriff, I'd have made $192,000, would have been the cheapest year, and almost $300,000 another year. I went in front of the commissioners yesterday. They said they would honor my contract at the 6.29% increase as an average as a county employee, and if you pass the salary ordinance, with also the $1,200. So today I'm before you to see if the county council is going to honor my contract.
I don't think we have any choice but to honor the contract. I'd like to have the attorney's opinion of that, and I think we already have.
So, Mark, what is your salary this year?
107,
107 something, I think.
158?
yeah.
And just, if you could, just lay it out for me, because I don't understand how you come to the 6.29?
Yeah, I came in October and tried to speak on this behalf. It's what WIS counted as the medium, or the average county employee raise. You have employees getting from 2.9 something up to 10 point something. The average county raise was 6.29. If you pass the salary ordinance and go to that midpoint.
That will have changed a little due to a reduction in the GIS coordinator, but not insignificant, but it will be a little change.
And how then, and what part, in your contract, what part does it say that you are entitled to that 6.92 or an average? How do you come up with that 6.92 or 6.29?
That is the midpoint. We could argue as low as the 2.9, or we could argue as high as 10.83.
Okay. And show me in the contract, or tell me how you interpret that as, that you're entitled to that.
Well, first off, I interpreted it from my attorney and legal deputy, Michelle Cooper, from Indianapolis, and also the county attorney that says I also am entitled to an increase.
Based on where in the contract? That's what I'm asking.
I gave you the signed copy.
Okay.
The same contract that my attorney, when I spoke with her yesterday, said that she can prove was the same one she sent me at the beginning, the same one I sent you guys, that has the word increase. Also in the email I sent you guys, Councilman Barrett asked if I would continue to get increases, which I don't know what the number of the provision is, but it was answered on tape that yes, I would be due for further increases.
And I don't know who or what you're referring to as far as thinking there was changes in the contract. I know I talked with HR simply about, can I see a copy of the contract? Can I have a copy of the contract? I asked for a signed copy of the contract. I signed it. I should be able to see that. Nobody seemed to have one. There was never any allegations made that anything was changed on it. It was just simply being able to prepare for today and have that information.
That's not what I was told by Ed.
Okay, well, that's less than actually the conversation then. And
But you never once reached out and said, Mark, can I have a copy? You went to Jana, you went to Ed, when the statute says it's between the executive, the commissioners, the fiscal, you guys, and me, and the attorneys. Not once was I ever reached out by any member of this board to talk about this. I came in October and said that I was due the 6.9, and I also sat here and asked, what are you offering me? And not one person said anything. Mr. Comfort then came and spoke to me the next month, possibly,
Sometime October, November.
and it just became obvious that it seems it's me, okay? There's some spite, hate, something from some of you towards me, and I hope to God it doesn't affect the rest of the county employees.
Well, to me, it's cut and dried. We got a contract and it tells us what to do, period.
We honor the contract.
the contract says, so it's open to how you look at it and how it's interpreted, and that's where I've been caught on it, on trying to make sure that we are fair to the taxpayers and to all county employees and to the sheriff. But it says the sheriff shall be eligible for any future pay increases, along with any other employees. So when we submitted everything to WIS and we went through an evaluation of the positions, we made the sheriff eligible for that. We didn't make the position ineligible. If we had failed to have that position evaluated through WIS, then we would have been out of compliance with the contract because we didn't make him eligible, but we did make him eligible because we had that evaluated. So when the evaluation came back that the Whitley County Sheriff was in a range well above what their recommendations were, then that came back then to us to decide how we would, as far as with any of the other positions, on how we would compensate that or not compensate or change that position or not change that position. The average came back at $97,000 and a little bit over $97,000. So the sheriff was not ineligible, but it doesn't say that he's entitled to what anybody else gets. There's a big difference in legal definition between the sheriff being eligible and the sheriff being entitled to any future pay increases, along with any other county employees, or in any other manner as determined by the Whitley County Council. Any other manner, we used WIS as a reevaluation tool to come up with a fair and equitable way to make all county employees paid a fair rate based on our surrounding area, counties our size, and what that position pays.
We didn't use that.
We didn't use what?
I'd like to know, and he has already told us, is he eligible to get what he asked for? That's legal for him to have it.
So, I mean, in my opinion, you're both right, okay? Is that the contract says, the way I read it, is it says that you're eligible for increases. It doesn't say what the amount is.
And it doesn't say that it's entitled.
Well, I don't know that I agree with that. I think he's entitled to an increase. It's just not clear what the amount of the increase is. But it does talk about it being on a percentage basis, so because of there being percentages, but whether that's 2 or 10%, I think what Mark's suggesting is to make it fair, let's just pick the middle. I think that's why he's used that number. There is no right answer. I mean, that's ultimately where you're at, is that, it does say, or in any other manner as determined by the council. It says that as well. And so, unfortunately, it's just, there's not clarity where you need clarity. And I to a certain extent, I understand what both of you are saying.
My understanding of the contract is that this was put in here to keep the council from saying, okay, we made an agreement with you, Sheriff, that we're going to pay you $107,158 for a 4-year contract, and we're not obligated to give you anything more. So I really look at that, Mark, as that's the reason that it was put there, so you can get fair raises along with any other county employee. So when it says the sheriff shall be eligible, that means you're eligible just like anybody else. And the process that we did is going through WIS, we kept you eligible for that, and we considered it.
WIS did not factor the elected officials. They gave you a range of what elected officials made. They never factored my job.
No, they didn't, because it's an elected position, and there's too many intricacies to do that. But they came back at a mid-range of $97,000, just over $97,000.
Yeah.
So that was why we submitted it to them. Anything that we would have done for any county employee as far as looking, and this was kind of an anomaly because this was an effort and a push to set the entire county, all the county employees, to be fair to them and get them to market value. So when that came back, and we kept you eligible by providing that information and pushing it forward, even though you had a contract, because that's what the contract says. You are eligible for us to consider you for those increases. So we did that, but it came back to where their midpoint on everything that was considered was $97,000. And that was just on regional counties. And it was going to other counties our size, so it was a small point of it. But I went through and looked at every sheriff's position, even on top of that, in the entire state of Indiana, and you're the 21st highest paid sheriff in the state. So I think that it was fair. But if it came back the other way and said $110,000, then you would have been eligible for us to give you that based on what we did for all county employees. The second part of it, when it talks about percentages, is it's saying that future pay increases along with other employees on a percentage basis or any other manner. And my interpretation of what that means is if we give all county employees 1.3%, 6.7%, 5.8%, then you would be eligible for that. Or if we didn't give percent increases on a percent basis or in any other manner would be like this year when we say $1,200 across the board. So we're being fair and consistent with you on the $1,200 that we awarded to that position, along with all other county employees, based on the fact of simply that they're a county employee at that time, and it's a cost of living raise. It's not based on anything other than the fact that they're a county employee. The part where it says the sheriff shall be eligible for any future pay increases, if it said the sheriff shall be entitled to, then that would say, yep, in my mind, you're exactly right. You are entitled to that we gave somebody else, but it doesn't say that. It says eligible.
Okay, let's look at 2 questions. The average county employee receives 6.29, correct? Does anybody disagree with that?
I'll accept that. I don't know, I didn't do the math on that or do all the averages, but if that's what you said that it comes down to for the point of discussion.
Let's look at the legal definition of increase. So did these other county employees get that increase? I have multiple different versions of the legal definition of increase, add on, accumulate. Did they not get an additional increase on top of that 1,200?
There were increases for any position that was below the external midpoint.
Okay, so over my last 4 years as sheriff, when I came in, I took a 3% pay deduction from what Mark Hodges was making. So over the last 4 years, I've made 3.8% increase. Whitley County Council has made 39 0.94% increase. Tell me how that one's fair.
Mark, can you show me when you got elected what you commanded, what your pay was?
I don't think I have my old contract.
Because I think the council come to you and asked you at the time you got elected whether you would take a cut in pay, and you said, no, I'm entitled to make what Mark makes.
I did take a 3% cut because.
Can you prove that? I want to see
Yeah, it's
it.
in my safe at home. The county should have a copy of my contract also, or Jana may be able to look back at what Mark Hodges made his last year and what I made my first year.
Gentlemen, I feel like we're kind of in the weeds here. May I ask Attorney Shipman what your recommendation was to the commissioners and the rationale?
Well, I don't know that I have an actual recommendation. One of the things I think that's important, though, is for what you're saying about, we made him eligible. My personal opinion, my legal opinion, because he has a contract, that doesn't matter. Ultimately, that you made him eligible. You already entered into a contract with him. Whatever WIS determined or whatever is irrelevant, frankly. Whether you made him eligible, didn't make him eligible, because he has a contract. You have to honor that contract. Now, I would say that first. So the rationale for maybe why he's eligible and then didn't get one, I personally disagree with that. The next step, though, is where it is clear as mud, like I said. It says, in my opinion, I think when it says it's eligible, it doesn't say he's entitled. I agree. It's a bad choice of words. But you wouldn't use the word eligible and then tie it with the rest of it, again, in my opinion, if it didn't mean that he was to get an increase. The problem is that because your increases are, I'm sure when this was written, it was written with the thought that you'd give a $1,200 or a 2% increase. It was meant to be uniform, and that you would give an increase on a uniform basis. That's the way this was written. Because we ended up using this WIS system and it goes from 2 to 10, this doesn't make a lot of sense, okay? Because it doesn't say, so that's where the issue is. That's where you're having a disagreement, is really because the thought within which you entered this contract ended up being different, and this is all really, in my opinion, than what you had at the time you entered into the contract. Because I think what Thor said is probably correct, that you thought, hey, we're going to do a 1,200, if we do a 1,200 to get to 1,200, we're going to do a 2%, if we do a 2%, then you would get that. Well, you didn't. And the system that you came up with, I think, is fair, that you got everybody where they need to be, but it unfortunately has caused a hiccup because of the way Mark's contract is written. So I don't know where the number is. I think he is, personally, I do think he's entitled to the increase, and that amongst the collective, that you guys could sit down and figure that out, and probably a non-public setting, and come up with an agreement on it, somewhere between 2 and 10%. And to a certain extent, him saying, I'll take the middle, fair compromise if I were mediating the dispute, I guess. That's a long-winded answer.
And you did not make a recommendation to the commissioners because they had no action to take, is that correct?
No, I think gave a favorable pass yesterday but you guys, I gave you a lot more than we talked about it yesterday.
Last month, I proposed a $3,250 increase for 6 elected officials, and it did not. The motion was not seconded. Mark, with an additional $2,050. Would that be satisfactory to you besides the $1,200?
No, from what I've been run through,
Okay.
the 6.29 is what I'm requesting, and if the council doesn't approve, then of course we all know we'll have to move forward from here.
What's the 6.29 come to, Mark?
$115,098, that's with the 1,200 on, I believe.
$115,098. would be your salary next year. So it'd be an increase from 107,000, which is far above the $97,000 average. So, you know, going with legal advice.
You guys
And-
are the highest paid.
Excuse me, I didn't interrupt you. What we tried to do, and the reason that we're in this situation with all county employees, is to be fair, not to any one person, but to all county employees. When we had a personnel committee that was made up by people in this small county, both department heads and council members and commissioners, it got to be a very muddied situation on trying to figure out what a position should be paid or not be paid based on people knew who was in the job, and we like this guy, we don't like this guy, we like this person, this position has not produced, this position is producing a lot. There's all sorts of factors. It was a very uncomfortable position to be in. You were on that personnel committee for a period of time, weren't you? And it was a hard process, whether it was your department or whether you were helping decide with some other department. It was a hard process. And it got to the point to where the process was essentially being manipulated by people because they knew how the system worked. So there were so many people that wanted us to get out of the business of us doing evaluations of positions and what they cost and what they should be at. So we did that. Then we got back into an agreement with WIS, who is a professional company. Undisputedly, probably in Indiana or not a wider range, one of the premier people to evaluate a government agency. And we did this for transparency, to be fair to all the county employees. So in an effort to bring the people who were being paid below market value to a point to where they were making an honest wage, an equal wage for their position and their duties and their job that they were doing for Whitley County. And that's how we got to the position of the 2 to 9%. I don't think, my opinion is, based on the information they gave back to us, that your position to give that much of a raise to is being fair to all county employees. Now, I'm not against you making anything that you can make and getting your paycheck. I mean, you're limited to 2 terms and what you can even do in that position, and you put a lot of work into that job, and there's a lot of responsibility there. There's a lot that goes along with it. I'm not anything against Mark Gatton and what he makes. What I am against is I want to be fair to everybody. So if I give you that raise, I'd like to be able to turn around and give it to all the county employees, but we can't do that. And when we do that, and then you're going to turn around and you're going to want more because you have a contract that says that you are eligible, not that you're entitled to, but you are eligible. So that makes it tough. It makes it tough to answer to the taxpayers on why our sheriff is the 20th highest paid sheriff in the county or in the state of Indiana. And I understand what you're doing and appreciate the fact of the cost of money savings that you give to the county by not going the other direction. I don't know what the hiccups would be or what all is involved there as far as you doing that and why you wouldn't want to go that way, because you don't have to enter in a contract with us, and you know that. You could go that way, but there's got to be a reason that you don't want to, and that's neither here nor there as far as the reason we're here today. I'm going to back up just one second and ask you another question. Is there anything that you do in your job as a sheriff, any income, anything that comes in on top of that $107,158, anything that you get money from, any additional revenues?
That has nothing to do with this meeting.
Well, it has to do with what, how you're compensated. Anything that's not in the contract is what I'm talking about. I mean, the things that are in the contract are spelled out.
There's nothing that I make off the county that is more money because I don't get any additional.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
I'm asking, I get thrown at that I'm the highest, blah, blah, blah. You guys are one of the highest paid council. You're almost up to what Allen County makes. So we can sit here and play that. I guess I'm asking my legal deputy and the county attorney, both agree, is the council gonna go against what the attorneys are saying? That's all I need to know today, whether the contract, I'm gonna go after breach of contract or not.
Well, I haven't seen any official opinions or any official documents from any attorneys at this point, so.
Maybe one right here on.
An official opinion, an official written opinion from an attorney, I mean,
Yeah, there is one in here
You
somewhere.
guys spent almost $750,000 on raises, and we're sitting here arguing over $6,000.
Well, it's a matter of fairness to all county employees, and it's a matter of fairness to the taxpayer.
Right, well, matter of fairness is some county employees barely got anything, and others got 10.98, so how is, I guess,
The fairness is the people that were over what was come back as a recommendation did not get their wages cut because of the fact that they were over. We didn't do that to anybody, and we were consistent in that.
well, I feel like we're beating a horse, so all I'm requesting is, are you gonna honor the contract at 6.29? Are you not?
Chair. Could I bring something out also in this, and I think this is relevant. The pay that is shown in all the different publications that we have for the sheriff, the sheriffs have different contracts. A lot of these sheriffs it shows that they aren't making a lot of money. They also take the tax warrants. There are a lot of other things that bring them up to that level. So, you know, with our contract, the last contract we had with Mark, we said you don't get any of the tax warrant monies. That goes back into county general. So there are some issues here that we had to look at as commissioners too, that it looks like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money, but it's hard to compare it against other sheriffs, even within the areas here, but there are some issues there that we need to look at.
Yeah, just because the salary, the sheriff's salary is listed at such and such, that doesn't tell you what his income is. The last year we operated without a contract, I don't remember what year it was, but the sheriff made over $120,000, which I have no idea what that would be today, but a lot more, because meal money for one is a lot bigger than that, and that's where a lot of the income came from. So in the sense of the taxpayer, we're getting a bargain.
I think that fairness is important, but maybe a better way to think of things is equity. And when things are not equal, they cannot be judged the same. And WIS came back to us with another letter saying that they did not factor elected officials. So they need to be a separate class with job descriptions based not only on the state statute, but also what actually happens here, so that they can be evaluated differently than employees that can be factored, because they can't be factored.
No.
Sheriffs and everybody else, they're different in every county, what the responsibilities end up being. So I think it's equitable to separate the sheriff from the county employees
Well, but the same.
who can be factored. So I will just make a motion that we increase the sheriff's pay by the 6.29% that has been discussed. So there's a motion, so we can go forward one way or the other.
I'll second that.
Does that motion include the 1,200 cost of living?
I thought it did.
You mean in addition to that?
In addition to that?
I would say no.
And that was the way I thought about it when I seconded it. That doesn't matter.
There would not be a cost of living. It would be the 6.29.
so can you restate the motion?
Okay, I make a motion that we increase the sheriff's salary by 6.29%, and that there not be any additional increase beyond that for the calendar year of 2020.
And that's what I thought I seconded.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Matt, how does that figured in as far as he's entitled to any raises or anything else? Would he still be entitled, according to the contract, that he would get the raise?
The 1,200, I guess.
The 1,200, I'm just talking about 1,200.
Well, did you guys already pass 600?
Yes.
So he already has it, right? Are you making a motion to,
Oh, so he already has it?
I mean, if you already passed.
We haven't
it,
set the salary ordinance yet.
So that, I mean, it's kind of complicated because I'm not sure what you're doing with the salary ordinance. And
I don't think you can.
Okay.
Because that essentially is exactly what the contract says that we can't do.
Then I withdraw the motion.
So the $1,200, regardless of how you interpret or don't interpret the 6.29% is irrelevant, but the $1,200, I would tell you that's the part that I agree with, that we absolutely have to pay.
Then I withdraw the motion and make a new motion that we increase the sheriff's salary by 6.29%, and it be clarified that he received the cost of living every other employee received.
I'll still second that.
A motion and a second.
So we can at least talk about it.
Yep, so let's talk.
We're bumping into the next problem. When we talk about elected officials, there is no standard. There's nothing to compare it to. It's what we decide, what that elected official is worth to the county. I'm talking, and we're gonna hear some more about that in a little bit. But that includes the sheriff. Mm-hmm. Is he worth $107,000 or $115,000 a year to us?
So what would be your recommendation, Bill, then, or how would you evaluate that, or assign the number to it, or factor it, or how would you, what would be your ideas?
I think, I don't have a figure in mind. I think it's just something we have to talk about and say, okay, a treasurer is worth these number of dollars to Whitley County.
And how would you decide that, though? What would you use as parameters?
I don't, the discussion.
I think that going forward, we've got 8 months to determine how we would do this next year for elected officials. And I think we need a job description, we need a statement of what their statute requirements are, and then we need to lay that down and compare it to other people and see what the job responsibilities are and other people who work for the county and go from there. But that doesn't solve the issue right now, the 2020 salary ordinance.
Well, I think we have to go with what our lawyer tells us to give the 6.29%. And I'm not saying you're not worth it, you don't deserve it. I think you do. And I look at the other side of it, and everybody in the room knows it. You sit right there and tell us right now, since you have that contract, you're putting $100,000 to $300,000 back in our general fund for us to spend where we need to spend it. I appreciate that.
So, Mark, other than that $107,000, there's no other, you have no other sources of income that come from being the sheriff? They have directly related to that job?
As I stated before, I think we need to honor the contract that both the commissioners and we have entered into.
And I completely agree with that. I just don't know where we come up with the 6.29%. I understand where the number came from. I just don't understand why we're bound to the contract to that number.
What would you suggest to the,
It doesn't say that's 6.29. That's the compromise.
I would be willing to alter my motion if there was a compromise, a different number that the compromise that the council and the sheriff could come to.
Well, we've got a motion and a second, and we're at discussion now, so we would need to take that to a vote before we would,
Chad,
but
what would you
we can
suggest?
cover that through conversation here before we go to that vote. I'm sorry, Bill, what'd you say?
I was asking Chad, how would he come up with a number?
It's complicated. I don't have an answer. I'm just trying to understand how we are where we are.
I think that,
And I,
go ahead, Chad. Nope.
I mean, I completely understand how we got to the point
Yeah.
where we are now
Yeah.
by using the WIS refactoring. I think it was important to do because I think it resulted in increases where they were due, and we reset what we were paying, and we're paying market value, external market value. We're competitive with other employers in our area now, and I think that's important to attract talent. I think that the actions that we took are absolutely beneficial to the taxpayer, because now we're competitive enough that we can bring talent to our workforce. Not that we didn't already have talent, but we know the economy now, and we know the unemployment rates, and we know the market, and we know that as we grow, we're going to need to bring people in. So I think what we did was important. Absolutely.
And my whole issue through this process was just the wording of the contract. I don't understand, or I don't look at it and interpret the same way that you do. And the email that you sent out, as far as the information you got from the county attorney, Matt, did we ever have a conversation, you and I, on this issue?
I don't think so.
Did I request anything from you? Did you give me a report verbally or written? So that's what kind of made me wonder, is how you had that report from him and we never got it. So why aren't we getting this information?
Because it would have been confidential between Jana and Matt, but Jana told me that she had received the email.
So that's not really confidential then?
Well, she didn't pass
Jana's
the
the one that
email,
asked me.
the whole information on.
Okay. So I just want to clear that up, but I don't want you to think that I got some report and was just strictly going against what was being offered. This is the first that I'm getting this information and this recommendation. There was nothing outside. But it bothered me a little bit that you had the report and we didn't.
And I'm a little hung up on that right now. I'm trying to understand. So you received a report, you shared with the sheriff that you received a report, but you didn't share with council?
She just sent me the contract and said.
And just
"This is
asked
me,"
him.
And did I even email you, or did we just talk?
I think you sent me an email, very short, and we
Two-line
didn't.
email that said, I think entitled to the increase, because it says increase.
And you didn't feel that it was pertinent to share with council?
I guess it was just
I
between
didn't
Matt and
realize
I.
I didn't intentionally not share it with you guys. I didn't realize where all this was. I just got asked a question and answered it. And so I can appreciate potentially that I should have appreciated the circumstances and potentially sent an email to everyone about it. I just didn't. Just as it was.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't think I've talked about it at all, and I don't think I talked to either one of you. It wasn't intentional, I just didn't know that.
And I just think in the way that I read the contract and interpret it, and as you said, it could be interpreted different ways, that we probably need to make sure that moving forward, and not with you necessarily, or at least for another 7 years with you, that our next contract, well, if
3
you,
years?
7,
3?
we won't have a contract with you in 3 years.
That's what I mean. That's what I thought you meant with me for 7 more years. No.
We could potentially 7 years from now.
The position of sheriff.
What we need to do probably is make sure that part of the contract is
Absolutely.
More defined.
more defined, is more cut and dried as far as what the expectation is. And I don't know that would ever become an issue again anyway, unless we went back through WIS and did a complete refactor like we did this year to again be fair and standard for all our county employees. So you want, if you could please just restate your motion exactly, since we've had some discussion, so we have clarity on exactly what your motion is, sir.
Can Gina read it, or you want me to start over? Okay. My move that we increase the sheriff's salary by 6.29%, and further clarify that he will receive the cost of living all county employees receive for 2020.
And that's what I seconded.
Okay, so we're still at the point of any further discussion.
I only, a comment that we have to abide by that contract. And we'd lose face with everybody if we didn't, so that's, well, we need to do it.
We'll go to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Passed 6-1. Laurell Schroeder, please.
Good morning.
My name is Laurell Schroeder, and I'm the Whitley County Treasurer. It's occurred to me that the council has no idea what my job duties or my responsibilities are, or even my performance of these duties for the past 7 years. Nor would you know anything about my workload versus the workload of any other department head here in the county. Yet you have determined that 99% of my non-elected co-workers shall receive a wage increase based on a reevaluation of their jobs. Since I wasn't given the opportunity for a reevaluation of my job, I'm here to ask for a wage increase of 10%. I've been a dedicated, fiscally responsible, full-time, and self-taught treasurer whose job description matches that of a department head. The 10% increase would still leave the treasurer's office $10,000 less than a department head right down the hall. A matter of fact, it would still be less than directors of departments that have supervisors or the HR director. But as the council reminded us in the October meeting, elected official salaries are not based on job performance or responsibility or dedication. It's totally up to the discretion of the council. So if my salary isn't based on my job performance or my responsibilities or my workload, one has to wonder if gender or my age or personality conflicts or personal vendettas play a part. I was asked about percentages in October by the council. While I was unprepared then, I would like to share with everyone what I found. Council gave themselves the largest percentage raise in the whole county for 2017. That was an 18.7% increase. Council gave themselves again the largest percent raise in the whole county in 2019. That was a 12.1%. Just last month, council gave themselves yet again the largest percentage raise for 2020, a 9.2%. That's a total of a 39.94% increase in just 3 of the past 4 years. And I wish someone would explain to me how someone that is elected to specifically be the purse strings of the county can give themselves the largest percentage raise 3 out of the 4 years. While the treasurer has only received a 13% increase in the last 4 years, I feel totally justified in asking for just a 10% increase. This would be the start to wage equality or a competitive wage here in Whitley County. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
When you made your budget request, why didn't you put that in there then?
Because the council has always decided my salary, and that was what...
And we still would, but
Yes.
you didn't make a request.
I did not make a request because the council always does what they want to with my salary.
Well, and that's where we are.
And that's why I'm here asking. Because I've never, in the 7 years that I've been treasurer, I have never asked for a raise. And people within the same floor that I work on have gotten 30% increases in the last 4 years, 35% increases, I'm still at 13%. Even, I'm still at 13%. And I feel for my job to be competitive in the future. It needs to be raised.
What would that make it?
That would make it, so currently I make $49,415. 10% would be $4,941. That would bring it up to $54,356. Well below even a director or a PAT 2.
Tell us what your responsibilities are.
My responsibilities are that of a department head. I supervise. I take care of any problems, which the average a director or anybody that has a supervisor would not have that responsibility. I take care of $34 million
That's what I want.
of this county. I balance the books on a daily basis, which according to State Board of Accounts only needs to be done once a month. I balance with the auditor's office and with the bank on a daily basis.
Are you responsible for investing that money?
Investing the money, I do.
What else?
When I became the treasurer, there was no training whatsoever. There was nothing written down. The current treasurer, I was handed the keys, and I brought in a new chief deputy, so we were a total new, there's only 2 of us in the office, total new office. From that day forward, I said, this is never going to happen. I don't care who takes over after me, this office is going to be prepared. So we have put together an SOP, a standard operating procedure manual for our office that tells everything, all of our duties, how to. So anybody could come in and take over that office. They'd struggle, but they would have written instructions.
Any other questions?
So you're asking for a 10% raise, it just for you or for all 5 elected
I'm
officials?
asking for myself. I would hope that the other elected officials, because I feel that we were left out of any consideration of wage increase, I would hope that the council does something for them. Personally, I'm asking for 10%. I'm going to be done next year. I'm a firm believer in you're going to get what you pay for. If you leave my salary at the low end that it is now, I am worried about what kind of candidates that you're going to have that apply for this job.
Mr. Chair, would it be preferable to respond to this now or wait until we're doing the salary ordinance?
Well, it kind of needs to be settled now, so Jana can set the salary ordinance and plug the numbers in so she can print out, and it can be signed today, am I correct? Because she's going to have to actually do that right now, right? So whether we do it now or 5 minutes from now is kind of irrelevant. Are there any other questions?
I was in the back and I heard, of course, the conversations, and I heard things like fair and standard to all employees. I heard a matter of fairness being talked about. I heard competitive salary was what you wanted to accomplish. I don't feel that the treasurer's salary is competitive. And even with the 10% that I'm asking, it's not even competitive within our own company. Our own department heads just 3 doors down.
She asked for 10% for that, yeah.
Would make 10% more, or $10,000 more than what I'm even asking for.
This is what the 1,200. Mr. Chairman, has your request been denied due to the lack of a motion?
I would make a motion then that 5 full-time elected officials receive a $2,000 increase and the $1,200 cost of living, rather than the $10,000 requested.
Well, they're already getting the 1,200, so can we leave that out of your motion? Or do you want that as part
We
of it?
clarify it for the sheriff, so I
Okay.
was trying to do the same thing.
Okay, so what's your motion, sir?
That each of the 5 full-time elected officials receive an additional $2,000 increase on the cost of living, $1,200.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
So we have a motion, a second. Further discussion?
Just want to clarify, it's for all elected, all of the 5 elected.
Full-time
Yeah.
elected officials. Back to,
So it's across the board for those 5 who are
Four up here,
excluded
four
from the
up,
WIS refactoring
it
apparently.
would exclude the sheriff as well, and the council and the commissioners.
We need to define which positions they are by
Yeah.
Okay?
motion.
All right. They would be the assessor, auditor, clerk, treasurer, and recorder. And I think, Mr. Chair, when I clarified, I failed to include the second portion of my original statement, being that their deputies be set at 85%. And I'm not sure if you want to second that or not.
Yeah, I think I do. It gives a benchmark, and they need one.
So WISC will not evaluate those 5 elected officials?
They were evaluated, a report was given back to us.
There really isn't any way of evaluating them.
And that comes back to our conversation earlier. How would you?
Yeah.
So you'd have to use an industry standard. You'd have to use something. We couldn't just sit here and we could sit here all day and try to figure that out. So we'd use an industry standard. So what would that be?
I have no idea.
My suggestion would be to use what the salaries are right down the hall, right in the office next to me that has the same job responsibilities.
But they don't have the same job responsibilities. They're completely different than what you do. Well, there's only one treasurer's office, isn't there? You said there were only 2 of you. You guys do that job.
We do, but the job responsibilities of the department head
It's not all the same.
is all the same.
No, I don't agree with that. The clerks are far different. They're responsible to the courts. It's a different ballgame than what the treasurer is, in my opinion.
So I'm talking about department heads that are non-elected,
The
that
clerk
have
is
been
elected.
evaluated, that are here on this WIS report. Our job responsibilities are not unlike.
But they are different, including the statute requirements.
are different.
So I think that they should not be compared one to the other. It should be evaluated separately by the Personnel Committee based on job descriptions and statute requirements.
I agree with that.
So how would you suggest what parameters we would use for that? What would you start with? How would you come up with the system?
We would have to have, first step would be, okay, how does it compare to our department heads? What are the similarities? What are the differences? What are the statute requirements for education, other issues? And then I think the third step would be we would have to find like counties who have people who fill the position in a like way. You know, those 5 positions are technically 20-hour-a-week positions, and some of those people who were in the average, maybe 20-hour-a-week people, and don't take the responsibility, so we can't compare apples to apples. That's why just a flat average doesn't work for me as equitable.
Some of them require more training than others by statute.
So the 5 should not be the same necessarily, because some require more education. But they should each be evaluated individually, and then hopefully we can find some counties to compare. That's how I would do it. But because we can't accomplish that now, I'm suggesting the alternative.
I suggested a 10%, which was $4,941. And I heard something about a 10,000 increase. I was not suggesting a 10,000 increase. I was suggesting a 10%.
No, my motion is a $2,000 increase beyond the cost of living. So that'd be the $3,200 that we originally talked about last month.
And that was your motion. That's what I seconded.
Is everybody clear on the motion? Any further discussion on it? We'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. Let's show there's 3 yes votes. All those opposed, raise your right hand. And 4 against, so that dies.
So can anyone tell me what I have done that deserves no raise? What have I done in the last 7 years that would deserve no raise?
Well, you did get a raise. It's
I got
not
a
what
cost
you
of
wanted.
living. I got a cost of living, the same thing that everybody else in the county got.
But it is a raise.
It is a raise. So my question, I should restate that. What have I done to not deserve a wage increase? What have I done?
It's nothing that you have done or you haven't done. This isn't about you. This is about the position and that office and how we're paying it. It has nothing to do with you. No one is saying that your performance hasn't been what it should be.
So why am I not being compensated? What is fair about that no compensation for my 7 years of dedication here in the Whitley County?
The position has been treated fairly with all the county's raises, with all the county's positions. It's nothing that you have done or that you haven't done. It's an evaluation of the position.
So you can tell me that the elected officials were treated fairly here. That's what you're telling me. Yes or no? The elected officials were treated fairly. We were evaluated. We were excluded from being evaluated. Our jobs were not reevaluated. We were treated differently.
All that I can say is that this is a new process, and we were given one set of information by WIS, and then they corrected the reality of the situation with elected officials, that they weren't actually factored. So given the time frame and the complexity, things may not have been done perfectly, but I believe we did our best to be honest and fair about it.
As you said when you started, the council determines his salary.
Council does.
They just did.
And there was nothing fair about the process whatsoever, gentlemen.
911 transfer request, please.
You see my handy little.
Yeah, I saw that. Sometimes I'm wishing they'd have a chamber to be put in so I can put it up to my head.
Janelle Schmidt with 911, and I'm
My daughter
requesting
got that.
5,000 be transferred out of equipment repair into overtime to make up for a shortfall.
Simple house cleaning for the end of the year.
Yep.
Yeah.
I make the motion we approve the transfer resolution.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand, and those opposed, the same. Passed unanimously with all board members present. Commissioners' report, please.
Okay, basically, right now, I've got an additional appropriation that I'd like to propose. We have additional appropriation from Commissioners' building maintenance of $200,000. That $200,000 is for the annex that we approved. The budget for that was right at $140,000, which I think we're going to come in real close to that. But the state also wanted a $40,000 additional. They wanted to do different carpeting in the annex. And so we suggested that they just deal with OMSBA on that. But because the way the state works, that they have to, we have to have it done, pay the bill, and then they'll get an additional appropriation for us. They'll appropriate that $40,000. So we're still not done totally with the annex, and so we gave a little bit of a fudge factor in there, the $20,000. So we're $200,000. We're asking to make sure that we're covered through the end of the year on the annex. They have approved paying the $6,000 a month to us. They haven't started that yet. Again, it's a housekeeping thing that they said that they've got it approved, but they're only paying us the $2,300 a month right now for the rent, and it will be, we'll get the back pay for the $6,000. It's part of the way the state operates. But that should, after the first year, we should be all set on that to be continued at $6,000 a month.
And this 2,000 would come out of the county general, this 200,000?
Yes.
And we have to pay it this year and be repaid next year.
For the $40,000, it's all according to how fast they can do it, and I can almost tell you, they've already told me that sometimes it sits on somebody's desk for up to 6 months. So the commissioners are asking for that approval for that additional appropriation, and then second additional appropriation we have is for $65,000 for other services and charges from CEDAT, or for CEDAT, because of the fact that the regional sewer district was supposed to have been formed last year. I think we were going to get, and when they got their bond issued, all the monies that the commissioners spent would have been reimbursed to us. But there have been issues with the regional sewer district, and the bond hasn't been issued yet, so the money that we approved and paid hasn't been paid to us yet, so we'll need an additional appropriation for that.
That's out of seated.
Pardon?
That's out of seated.
Two out
Yes.
of county general, and one out of city.
Okay, oh, that's right. And then we do have another one for liability, property and liability insurance, including our lawsuits that we've been having. We've got an additional $150,000, and it's, we've had a lot more lawsuits than what we thought we'd have, and we've had quite a bit of issues with accidents, car accidents. All that's added up, but the majority of it are lawsuits that we're dealing with. Some of the lawsuits we've been dealing with for 5 years. So those three appropriations is what we're asking for.
Can I have that copy, George? Thank you. Would you like to address these as a whole or individually? I would entertain a motion either way.
We have sufficient funding in county general to do this. I make a motion that we approve the appropriation resolution for $200,000. Secondly, and that's out of county general. Secondly, $150,000 in county general. And thirdly, $65,000 out of CEDA. Any additional appropriations?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Let it be shown that they all three were passed unanimously with all board members present.
Thank you, gentlemen. Not much other than end of the year issues that we've got. A lot of issues with, we're dealing with, still with the jail. The jail is not the issue. It's, we're working with jail community corrections. I will tell you that the pretrial services that the prosecutor and the judges have been working on has dropped our jail population all the way down. We've been down to 99 before. I think we're at 104 right now. And the sheriff will tell you that, and Sean will tell you that that's manageable, at least that it's a lot better than what it's ever been for a long time. So pretrial services has made a huge difference for us. And we're hoping by the time first of the year, Parkview will have their addiction and mental health center open, and we'll be working with them to deal with some of our addiction issues in the jail and community corrections also. So we're working towards reducing the jail population. And talking to Mark Sturdivant, the jail really isn't that bad a shape. It'll last another 5 to 10 years. So we're concentrating right now on making sure that we take care of the population, separate out the population, be able to classify the population that we've got right now. But it's been exciting. There's a lot of vocational training issues coming up. There's been a lot of money being put towards vocational training for our for the jail population and community corrections population. The good thing is that the only thing that we have to focus on is making sure with the addiction services that we've got someplace to house those people, and I think we've got that right now with our community corrections facility that we've got. We're going to concentrate on addiction and not the mental health to start, so that we can get things going and get it controllable. Parkview is doing everything, all the funding for the mental health and addiction center is, Parkview's taking care of all of that, even the facility that they've got, and that's on Connection Way. It's at the Soil and Water building. It's in the front of that building. They'll be able to work with up to 15 people at a time, which is great for us. And then the vocational training facility is being funded by a lot of the Community Foundation, Lilly Foundation, Deco Foundation. A lot of the foundations are working on that, and our people will be able to go in there after 4:30 and work and possibly even get a college degree from that, because they'll be working with Ivy Tech and Vincennes University. It's been great. We've been able to work with a lot of different people. The commissioners have worked very hard on this to make sure that we deal with the jail population and get the recidivism down. That's about all I've got.
John, were you here for official business or just wanting to talk to us afterwards?
He's here.
Well, yeah, I was here to ask for you to I'm John Myers, President of the Whitley County Economic Development Corporation. As you may have seen from a note that Jan circulated last week, I'm here to request that the council hold a special meeting to consider a project that we've been working on for the last couple of months. The Redevelopment Commission has to, well, what happened is I intended to present the project to you guys at the meeting today, but the Redevelopment Commission attorney realized late in the project that the Redevelopment Commission had to hold a public hearing and provide notice of that public hearing. So they were unable to actually adopt the contract that's part of that agreement at their last meeting. So their next meeting is December 10th, and if we again have a need to get this project done before year end, if at all possible. I will, of course, do the customary write-up on it for you guys, but in short order, it's about 100 jobs, average wage of $37 an hour, and $12.5 million in investment. It will be a game changer in terms of Whitley County's status in the medical device realm if we get this project through. So today I'm just here to ask if you would consider holding a special meeting at some point after the Redevelopment Commission meeting next Tuesday, which should be done by 9 o'clock, I would guess. And before year end.
And I think it's been asked the 10th.
So the 10th is the...
Well, I think that's what was sent out, wasn't it, Jan?
Well, there were several choices or options sent out, but your meeting, you expect to be done by 9 o'clock on the 10th.
Yes.
So would everybody be available here, or is there anybody that would not be available to have a 9 a.m. meeting on the 10th?
I don't think,
Works for me.
Bill?
I don't think I'll have a problem.
I'll be here.
I'll be here.
Okay. So let's go ahead and set that appointment, or that meeting, and I anticipate this will be probably about a 10-minute meeting, just long enough for your presentation and us to consider.
Yes.
It's at 9A.
If you go longer than 2 hours, then we'll expect you to bring lunch.
If I go longer than 2 hours, I'll come in and ask for a raise. No, it will be very, very short, and like I said, I'll have the write-up to you ahead of time so you can have your questions ready.
And that's essentially a summary of what you already sent us, the write-up?
Yes.
9 a.m.?
With all of
Is that what I said, is 9?
yeah, with all of the jobs and the numbers and everything behind it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything else we need to address before we set the 2019 salary ordinance?
I don't believe so. We just have minutes and that's it.
But we need to vote on the salary ordinance. Do you have that? Oh, you need to print that out.
Which you guys have it. You want the new one? Is that what you're saying? The one that GIS, because I think I'm gonna change this. You guys should have it. Right?
Not a copy to sign with what we just changed with a couple of positions though, right?
Right.
So will we sign, you're gonna have that ready for us to sign today?
Yeah, if you guys either approve it with the GIS change, because I think that was the only one that changed.
Okay. You had talked to me, that's why I wanted to make sure you didn't have something to add, because you had talked to me about another issue as far as your position that you wanted council to consider.
Oh, yes.
Is that, did you already add that in there?
It is in there. And
Okay.
I let you guys know that it was in there.
What
so.
is it?
It's council secretary pay. Other auditors in other counties receive it. It's to be the council secretary. But again, it's at you guys' discretion. It can be taken away. But I talked to several of you that had come up and talked to me in my office, and we seem to be open to it. So I added it, but again, it can be.
I'll look for direction on council on how they would like to handle that.
I missed part of the conversation. What-
Me too.
Jana has added to her salary a $3,000 increase
For the council secretary.
for the duties that she performs as council secretary.
That's part of the auditor's spelled-out job, and it'd be secretary to the council and commissioners.
But there's several other auditors within the state that receive council secretary pay on top of their salary.
Is that being mandated now from the state? Is that in the IC code?
No, it's just something that can be paid.
So we're gonna, it's on the consideration to give the auditor $3,000 raise to be the secretary for the council and commissioners? Is that correct?
No, council.
Just the council or both?
I mean, I am for both. but
Okay.
Yes.
That's,
And then we just voted down not to do anything for the other four? That's where I've got a question on that. That's where
Well,
not sure that's right.
Just
I don't know what anybody else feels.
Just to clarify, so when we had originally talked, I think the other ones were going to try to do a contract, and at the time, I had let them know ahead of time, well, I don't feel like I should do a contract because of being in the position that I'm in, so I said I'm going to try for the council secretary pay. And so, ever since then, I've said that I was gonna put it there. So again, it's obviously at you guys' discretion, but I figured I would put it, and I even put it in the email that it can be,
Yep.
I pointed it out, it's not like I was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, I did read it, but so it's not mandated, it's just something other county auditors are doing now.
That are being compensated for.
Okay.
it's an add-on, because the county auditor, the description of the auditor's job includes being secretary to the council and commissioners, and she's asking for over and above.
In the information that's been provided to us, are there any changes that we should take notation of, other than what we have voted on today in this packet?
That all includes the $1,200 cost of living increase, and everyone to the external med is what was on, what they gave you besides the changes you've done today.
And the salary listed for the sheriff is what we had conversation about in today's meeting?
Yes.
But we-
She changed that, she changed the GIS coordinator's position here, and then she'll print that for us to sign once we make that decision.
And also the matron?
Yep, the matron, oh yes, I'm sorry, the matron is fixed as well. It
Okay.
was changed to what you guys approved.
Do we have any number for this?
2019-16.
5?
I'm sorry?
What was the number?
2019-16.
16.
Yep, 16, yep.
16, is that what you said?
Make a motion that we accept the Whitley County Salary Ordinance for 2020, number 2019-16, with the exceptions that we have voted for within this council meeting.
Is that with or without the $3,000 increase for the auditor?
With.
Is it- It's in the ordinance as printed, right?
That,
Is it,
That
it is
is.
in the ordinance as printed, so, yeah, I'll second.
That is her position as secretary for the council and commissioners, correct? Yes.
And that is an additional duty, right? That's something that you're mandated to do by state code. You don't have a choice. You have to do that, and you have to be full-time auditor, right?
Second the motion.
have a motion, second, further discussion.
Nothing against the auditor whatsoever, but we've had discussion for over 2 hours, or not quite 2 hours, on the 5 elected officials, and we've turned them down. Now we have one that's asking for an increase, and nothing against you, but I struggle with us sitting here in just a few minutes, giving that raise, compensation, whatever you want to call it, away, and we don't do anything with the other 4. I'm confused, and I'm new on this council, along with Tim. I guess I don't know all the ins and outs and everything, all the statutes and all this and all that, but I'm sitting here struggling with why all of a sudden we just pretty quick give 3,000 away, we don't do anything with the other 4. I'm confused a little bit. And I really am.
Yeah, I understand.
I don't understand that.
We're asking to give the auditor a $3,000 raise above everybody else.
Well, and it's, if I understand it right, it's not mandated, it's just what other counties are doing now to compensate them a little bit, correct? Okay, so if you made the motion, you seconded it, so when it comes to a vote, if I vote no, does everything still pass okay? I mean, all the 1,200 increase for everybody? It doesn't have to be 100%.
Well, it depends on the vote.
Right, I know, but,
If you vote no, you're not voting against the salary ordinance, it's not going to not pass. The
Okay.
salary ordinance is still there.
okay, all right.
Just as a point, just to make sure I understand, this is a legally mandated additional responsibility for the auditor. So it goes in the auditor's salary. but
It's already in there, it's already the expectation, she's required to do that.
Yeah, we're giving her a $3,000 raise if we do it. Doesn't have anything to do with her being secretary of council commissioner. She already is.
Yep.
And again, I put it in there
I
because I
understand.
talked with other counties, and that's what they were doing to compensate their auditors for what they do.
I share your concerns. I do. I struggle with giving a $3,000 stipend or increase for the additional duty that's already mandated by state statute, by Indiana code. I appreciate everything that you do, and at this point, I don't think it's a matter of whether or not you, I know you're putting in the extra work. I'm just, at this point, I can't personally vote in favor of your motion to give one of those elected officials an increase and not do something with the 4 others.
So, to get us off dead center, would an amendment to my motion excluding the $3,000 for the auditor to be our secretary be relevant?
That would change the way that I intend to vote.
I'd agree.
But I'm going to stop you right here for a moment and suggest the fact that I specifically asked about that, and we have a motion and a second. So I would rather, I think that we are at the point where we need to move forward with that to a vote, and let chips fall where they do on that vote, and then
An additional motion?
if it doesn't pass.
Okay.
If it passes, it passes. But I think there's a motion on the floor, and there's a second that's been made, and I specifically asked that clarification, so I would hate for us to amend the specific part of it, especially after there's been a second.
Let's vote.
And I would withdraw my second if it is amended. So I would agree with the chair that we have the vote.
Any further discussion? We'll go to the vote. All those in favor of the motion that was made, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. And so it does not pass. So we are still at the point where we need to pass the salary ordinance. I would entertain a motion.
This has probably been the most confusing budget we've done since I've been around here. And I think I know, followed it all and know where we are. I'll move we pass this budget, or this salary ordinance,
With the exception of the 3,000.
the exception that has been made.
I'm not clear on the motion. I'm sorry. Can you repeat it, Bill?
I move we pass ordinance 2019-16, other than what we already took out of it, the 3,000.
That hasn't been taken out, so your motion would be that that's not included in the salary ordinance?
Yeah, that didn't pass, so that's not included.
So we have a motion, 2019-16, to approve the salary ordinance with the changes that we made earlier today and subtracting the 3,000 in the auditor's
Right.
position. Is there a second?
Changes the course of the day.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? We'll go to the vote. All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. And let it be shown it was passed unanimously with all members present. Please do not leave today until that has been printed out and you sign it. Now we're ready for the commissioner report, but I think that I actually asked you for that earlier when we were actually going to do the additional appropriation request, George, but do you have anything additional?
I don't have anything additional.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the November 18th meeting? And I would ask at this time, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes as they were presented to you? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion.
A second, please.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please respond by raising your right hand. And those opposed, the same. Minutes were passed unanimously with all board members present. Councilman Deck?
I have nothing.
Councilman Overdeer?
Nothing.
Councilman Crumpet?
Nothing additional.
Councilman Warner?
Nothing.
Councilman Wheeler?
Anything?
Vice Chair Banks?
Nope.
And I have nothing. Meeting's adjourned.